Right, so next we're going to be making the Bakewell pudding. In order to do that, we need to make a filling that's very similar to like a frangipane, like you would use in a Bakewell tart, but this is a bit richer because of the amount of eggs and the amount of butter that's in it. So we've got butter, caster sugar, equal quantities of them. There's 175 grams of each. We've got 2 whole eggs, 4 yolks, which makes it really rich, and then we've got roughly 80 grams of almonds. You could put slightly less in. If you're making this, you might also want to use a drop of almond essence, but we're not going to use that. We're just going to use just the almonds. Also have some egg whites left over, so they can be used for something else like meringues. So in order to make the filling, it's like basic sponge, cream sponge. So we've got butter and caster sugar. We're going to cream them until they're really light, really aerated, nice and soft. If your butter's soft, you could use a whisk for this as well if you wanted to. Just bring it in slowly. You could also put this sitting over a bowl of warm, hot water, making sure the butter doesn't melt too much. Or it doesn't melt at all, but you don't want it to over soften. If it over softens, then you'll have to start again. So what we're doing is beating it, getting air into it, and by beating the air into it, it helps the sugar to dissolve. I'm just going to do it like that. So I'm going to add the eggs, but in order to do this I'm going to use a whisk. Now I've got that butter and sugar nice and soft. Really well to incorporate those eggs, and then the egg yolks go in. So make sure it's well beaten, well combined. You don't want any curdled eggs looking in there, so if you've got any around the edge it looks like it's splitting, then you need to beat it really hard, really well, quite quickly. Almonds go in. And then just mix them through carefully, don't go crazy at first or else they'll leave the bowl. And that is your Bakewell pudding filling. So it's just a lighter, richer, creamier frangipane sponge. Right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put the Bakewell pudding all together. So we've got a puff pastry we've made already. We've got a frangipane filling that we've made already as well. We've got 80 grams of raspberry jam, and I've got a lined cake tin ready to go. Now we're only going to use half of the puff pastry, so the other half can be kept for another time. Right, so now so like I said, we only need half the puff pastry. So what I'm going to do, cut that in half, take out one piece, wrap the rest up. That can go in the fridge or the freezer for use for another time for something else, or another one of the same. So dust your area, you're rolling your pastry. Dust that well too, because it's really soft. Okay, so I'm going to roll it out. It's going to be quite thin too, because If it's too thick, it won't cook, and you've got a wet mixture on the top of it when it's cooking in the oven. There we go. Turn it 90 degrees. Just get a little bit bigger. So you can use a flan ring or anything else. It doesn't have to be a cake tin. Carefully, just roll it up like you would as if you're doing a blind baked flan. Then carefully unroll it in. Now lower it in. Now you want a bit of an overhang on the sides, most of the sides anyway, all the way around if you can. Get a bit of pastry off the off sides, roll a little ball and dab it into the corners. Because pastries react better to their own sort of material, so they'll stretch more naturally into place. Doesn't quite go everywhere, like it's not on one side there, that's fine. What I'm going to do is just dock it using a fork to make lots of little holes, that way the steam can escape during cooking. So now we've got our dock pastry cake, so I've got my jam. I'm just going to beat it up a little bit, make it nice and soft. That way it's easy to spread and you don't get big lumps of jam. If you do get big lumps, it's more likely to overheat, caramelise and possibly even burn. So the jam's going to be spread relatively thin on this. Just use a spoon, carefully spread it around. When it's cooking, the sponge, that frangipane filling, that rich filling will take on the jam into it a bit. So that's all nice spread, don't waste any of it, get it all in there. And now you put your frangipane on top. Now it's a sponge that's going to rise a bit when it's cooking. Can do is just carefully lower some of the pastry down just around the outside, like so, and then that's just going to go straight into the oven. So yeah, so they'll just go straight into the oven, 180 for about 30 to 45 minutes.